Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the TECHNE Connect Behind the Rack podcast series. Today we're joined by Ben Gliwa, Vice President of Engineering and Asset Management at Bulk Infrastructure. How are you doing today, Ben?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on
No,
board.
you're
Fantastic to be
more
here.
than welcome, more than welcome. Pleasure to have you. I think sort of for the listeners that maybe don't know you outside of your day-to-day life at work, who is Ben? What do you like to get up to and who are you outside of work?
Yeah, great question. I mean, work's so much part of our lives these days. I guess for me, I'm an Australian. That's my background, but I live in Sweden. I've got a young 2.5-year-old, so that's plenty of my outside life. But one of the great things about living in the Nordics is you get to get out and about
Yeah,
and explore outdoors and hike and stuff like that. So we like to get out as a family and hike around a little bit, go to the gym here and there. It's a high pressure environment, DC, so it's good to kind of de-stress.
yeah.
And no better place in summer and spring to get out across in the hills and hiking with in Sweden and in Norway as well. So that's a bit of a release for me, which is quite nice to have in this part of the world. So
Yeah, I can imagine. Really nice to actually get out and explore nature and do that sort of thing. How long have you lived over there now?
yeah, so I've been in Sweden almost 4 years. Before that, I was in the UK, mainly in London,
Yeah,
for about 4 years, and then obviously before that, Australia the whole time. So went from one of the warmest places in the world to one of the coldest, and now I work across in Norway, so it's even colder. But it's been fantastic. We've really loved, my wife and I and our son. We love exploring. We love going across to mainland Europe and seeing a different part of the world. And everywhere's different, something new every time. So it's really good. Apart from winter, winter's a little tough in 4 months of the year. So.
yeah, especially compared to Australia. But at least I guess you're getting a lot of different cultures and experience under your belt for both your family and your children as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a great experience. I wish I had done it when I was even younger, to be honest. It wasn't until sort of my mid-20s that I got across, and my wife's from the US,
Okay.
so she moved to Australia,
Yeah.
and then for me, and then we moved to the UK for her. So we kind of go back and forth through our careers.
Yeah.
But it's a great experience. I'd recommend it to anyone if you have the chance, even just a little bit of travel. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be moving you and your family. But once you get it under the belt, once you kind of get a bit more comfortable at stepping out of the zone and giving it a go as well. So I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I think quite unique that both you and your partner are both from sort of different parts of the world and you're both relocating together. So that's quite nice as well.
Yeah, no, it's a good learning experience about yourselves as well and your relationship. And there's pressure points when you move and where to move to and what to do and who finds what work, whether you're moving for her job or yours or your partner's. But you look back on it, it's definitely worthwhile, even if it's for a few months. Or when I moved from the UK to Sweden, I'd never been to Sweden before.
Oh
I'd
wow.
never been to the Nordics, and we got an offer with Amazon, and we took it and we gave it a go.
Yeah.
And it's been fantastic. So, like I said, winter a little tough, how dark it is here, but the culture, everyone's very supportive, very open to new people, and it's just pretty good for bringing up a family and
Yeah.
having a good work life balance, particularly in the DC space, which can be quite kind of high paced. So yeah, we love it.
Yeah, nice. I like it. Really interesting background. I guess you sort of started off there mentioning that you obviously are from Australia. So if we could get a quick overview of sort of where you've come from academia to sort of where you are now and how you've got to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question as well. I get a lot of questions about, you're an Australian in Sweden working in Norway in the DC sector. Um, how did it all happen? I'm a mechanical engineer by qualification, but have spent most of my career in kind of ops management, asset management, leadership roles.
Okay.
So I studied in Melbourne in Australia and focused in on mechanical and manufacturing engineering. And then after graduating, worked in an asset management company managing high pressure gas pipelines for half of the Victorian state back home. And a little bit of asset management planning, 20-year plans on the assets. But I really wanted to kind of get my hands dirty and understand. I'm a visual
Yeah.
learner, a practical learner. So I moved into more the contracting side and operating and maintaining the assets. And quickly moved into a management role. I was lucky enough to be kind of scouted through their internal leadership program to lead a small engineering team and a maintenance and operations team, and then moved through that quite quickly. So, although I'm qualified mechanical,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm hands-on mechanical engineering, but I've led and managed both mech, elec, controls engineers for the past sort of 15 years, and that I probably spent 6 or 7 years in Australia running gas networks, water networks, both operations teams. So could be 2 in the morning getting a fault on a gas
Yeah.
pipeline or a water network. And then across running projects teams as well, building some of the pipelines and building some of the assets in both cities and regional areas. So that was sort of my first sort of foray, and then moved into kind of management roles quite quickly, leading the strategy on maintenance, or your resourcing planning, all that kind of stuff, your capital, your OPEX, running budgets. And then, like I said, for love, moved to the UK.
Yeah.
So it was my time to kind of give back, and started afresh in the UK, and had to kind of work out where I'm going to move my career to, and no contacts and no connections, and just sort of went from scratch. And then started off jumped into a kind of smaller business that was running utilities and sort of pre-construction works and groundworks for sites across the UK and Europe, and was kind of given the mandate to re-establish the utilities business in the UK. The big focus had been on data centers and a lot of growth, and the traditional utilities doing the water pipelines and the gas pipelines for residential places in southeast
Yeah.
England dropped a bit. And I thought, yeah, why not give it a go? Rebuild the business unit, build up a design team, an engineering team, and like you are probably aware, there's plenty going on in both the commercial space in London and the residential space across England and northern England as well.
Yeah.
And we rebuilt that. So I kind of went from a large, big service provider in Australia to quite a smaller business, but growing quite quickly. So almost like a scale up.
Yeah.
Um, and then rebuilt that.
Was that a big
And then the
change
next
for
one,
you?
yeah, it was. I mean, it was, when you start off working for large corporations, that are on the stock market in Australia, very regulated, quite strict structure,
Yeah.
probably a little bit slow to move. Even for the service providers, for those very rigid frameworks. So change was a difficult thing because you had a lot of hoops to kind of move through.
Yeah.
And then you move to a smaller business that, direct relationship with the CEO, with the owners, a lot more flexibility, but you've kind of got to make up the rules, and you've got to kind of find out what the governance needs to be and the structure needs to be. And so you get a lot of freedom,
Yeah.
but then you need to kind of make the rules yourself for your team and for your business, and make sure you kind of have the right risk management. So it's exciting on that front because you're a little bit open to make it what you need it to be, but then you've got the dependency of the business unit you're running,
Yeah.
that you need to make it work,
Yeah.
because it's those people that you're employing and it's those assets that you're managing. Both are good learning experiences, and it's really insightful because often you have similar challenges. You think, oh, I'll go from a big company to a small,
Yeah.
and we'll be so flexible, and we'll be so everyone will communicate well. But no, there's still the same problems. How to best talk to each other, how to best communicate across business units, convincing people, persuading to get decisions made. You just have to kind of tweak and work out who you're working with, and what's the business
Yeah.
drivers. Where do they want to be. But definitely valuable, I think, comparing the two.
Yeah, I think it's probably more valuable than you think getting experience in both sides as opposed to just having experience in one, because you had the experience of being in the strict structures and regimes, and then you go to freedom, but then you've got to actually do something with the freedom and actually put in and implement in that space. So
Yeah, exactly. And it's a different level of kind of responsibility. So I think when you're in the big corporations, you get things laid out for
yeah.
you. Obviously, you have to deliver, but the structures are reasonably there, particularly at a junior level. And as you move to the smaller businesses, more and more owners, but your areas of involvement really opens up. So you, instead of just looking in one silo now,
Yeah,
you get to kind of look at bidding and estimating and PR and marketing, and so that can be quite beneficial for just your kind of
yeah,
awareness of where you want your career to go and what you're interested in.
yeah. I guess a lot more exposure to things. So that was your time in London. Did you then move to the Nordics from there? Or
Yeah, exactly. I was approached by Amazon Web Services, and took a role with their ops and engineering team in Sweden. And like I said, moved
yeah,
across without any. It was post-COVID, so
yeah,
there was no limitations anymore. But we thought, great opportunity to try something different. And the way I kind of saw it, the DC sector was essentially similar to running gas pipelines, water networks, power networks for cities, but compressed into kind of buildings.
yeah,
So you're still maintaining assets, you're still, responding to incidents, to breakdowns, managing personnel, managing budgets. But you've kind of put them in boxes, large boxes, and they keep on getting bigger. But yeah, also I was very keen to take up the chance. It was a little bit nerve wracking moving countries and starting afresh, but I haven't looked back. It's been fantastic. It's great to push yourself
yeah,
sometimes as well. Um, and then I ran ops and engineering teams across Amazon, and then Equinix as well in Sweden
yep,
for their operations, and both on the hyperscaler side and the colocation side.
okay,
And again, two very different sort of subsets of
yeah,
business in the DC world. With your very tangible, close to the customer, you have customers in the buildings, they're visiting all the time, they've got their own technicians. You have a lot of dialogue around challenges and constraints that they have, and you have on the colo side. And then the hyperscale is a little bit less than that. You
yeah,
can't go in there from a customer space, but definitely different challenges and exciting kind of obstacles to overcome to kind of keep building at the pace that they were building at, and move as a global business, but be quite nimble as well. A lot of sort of internal invention and innovation happening on that side, which was quite exciting. So yeah, worked at both of those and led teams across both businesses in Sweden. And then a few years later, late last year, moved across to Bulk in Norway,
nice,
and it's been a fantastic journey so far. The combination of those two businesses, the co-location and the AI kind of hyperscaler deployment into where Bulk is, and moving ahead at quite sort of light speed.
yeah. I was going to ask you, do you have a preference between the co-location and hyperscalers, or is it just each one brings their own challenge?
Yeah, very much different challenges. I mean, it is great to get close to the
Yeah,
customer on the co-location space, because you can hear directly from them what their drivers are, what do they actually need. I mean, I think in ops sometimes you can have what you think should be
yeah,
done, what you think the customer will want, but often it's a little bit different, or maybe they've got a different view of risk or a different view of what an impact is for their own servers and for their own assets. So I think that was the good side. But on the flip, on the hyperscale side, it's quite exciting as well. So I like both. I
yeah,
really like the challenges across both. Obviously AWS being a global business with quite a big headcount and
yeah,
global strategies, and then co-location, same thing. I mean, Equinix has over 270 sites, globally, and deployed in most of the major metros, but also quite connected to its customers, in the sense that in the sites I ran in Stockholm, the customers you've got in
yeah,
there, and there's some of their kind of global strategies. So both are really good learning curves, and great spaces to be in. I think it's the industry in general. It's a fantastic time to be in this sector, and I think compared to traditional utilities that I'd worked in for a number of years, took a number of years for kind of any innovation, and
yeah,
which makes sense. You're impacting households, water suppliers, gas suppliers. but it could take 2-3 years before you get a new valve installed.
Yeah.
You've got to test it
Wow.
offline for a couple, and we're moving at a week-to-week pace. And you see a lot of the announcements by Nvidia and different players. There's a new chip this week.
Yeah.
There's something else next week, and we have to adapt to that. And that's quite rare, I would say, in most industries. So.
Yeah. Do you prefer that? I guess the more fast-paced challenges or new adaptations coming in, as opposed to having to wait 2 or 3 years for a change on the waterline is pretty crazy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like two thoughts in my head when I think about that. One, from a pure asset management perspective, it's challenging because you want to understand the assets that you've built, how to maintain them, how to make them reliable for the long term. So you don't want it to change too much because you want that consistency for your customers. But on the flip side, it is exciting, and it's the customers that are driving it. And so we have to make sure we kind of keep up to spec with that. We need to make sure that our systems and, our maintenance and how we operate our sites are up to date with the newest chips and the newest servers. So it's exciting, but obviously it's challenging at the same time. But with challenges create sort of opportunity across the business for our engineers, for our design suppliers. That's driving kind of growth as well. So I'm glad it's not a static environment, because there's plenty of other sectors that are. So it's a good space to be.
Yeah, I think it could become quite boring if things never change. It's just almost the same thing. At least you go into work one week, you could have you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what change is going to come in. So it keeps it exciting as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, every industry goes in different sort of stages of growth and decline. And, I can't pick where we're going to go in the future. I know we talk a lot about growth and a lot about AI growth, and that's what I've seen. But you just sort of ride it as long as it's going, and try and learn as much as you can, in every role that you're in. Try and pick up where your customers are moving, where the designs are moving to, and where the next stage is for the business. So
I guess as we look back over your career then, sort of to date, obviously that's still going to be ongoing for quite some time, but what would you say are some of your proudest achievements throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, I probably have a couple I sort of sit back and think about sometimes. Is one of the big ones was just shifting from Australia to the UK. Particularly in the utility sector that I was in originally, it was such a tight-knit kind of community. Who works for who, and who the designers are, and who the suppliers and service managers are, and you build up your network. You've got that comfort zone, and if your career pivots, you're still in the same sector, so you build a bit of a blanket around you. And moving countries and starting afresh and just looking for new roles and not having any contacts was quite kind of confronting, and took a lot of back and forth on whether to do it. And it may sound simple to other people. They're a bit more risk adverse. I'm in ops, and so I'm quite risk management style. But that was a big jump for me, but I'm really glad I did it. I look back on it; it gave me the confidence to do it again, moving to Sweden, and then now moving across to kind of Norway. So I, give guidance to people if they're hesitating. You never know if you don't go, kind of thing. So I'd say that's one. Probably the second would be early on in my career. Very early on, I was a graduate engineer in a gas maintenance company running gas pipelines, but doing sort of project engineering. And I was sort of tapped on the shoulder to step up into a vacant technical manager's role, running a small engineering team and running a maintenance team as well, which for sort of 2 years out graduating was quite a big...
pretty crazy.
A little bit intimidating, and I hadn't even applied for the role because I just thought there's no way. The previous manager had 35 years experience, been in the industry for most of his career, and was a bit of a mentor for me, and he'd moved off to another company. But the ops manager at the time saw something, maybe a little bit of potential, but definitely enthusiasm. I was always quite passionate about getting things done. But that was a bit daunting, really, and you're standing up there, 23, 24, talking to, maintenance fitters, mechanics, engineers in their, 50s and 60s that had sort of built some of the first pipelines in Australia. and trying to not educate, but set up a
Yeah.
structure and understand when we meet and how we issue work and all that kind of stuff. But I learned a hell of a lot. It was a bit of into the deep end of the pool, and then learning, okay, well, what's my communication style? Where do I push? Where you don't push? Tailoring your comms for different types of
Yeah.
people and different kind of attitudes and different forums as well. But I learned a lot from that. And I'm pretty proud to be able to stand back from that. So yeah, we kind of reset things up. We weren't doing particularly well in some
Yeah.
areas of maintenance, and we were able to kind of turn it around. So sometimes when you're pushed into something, it doesn't always turn out to be the case. Sometimes you're sort of
Yeah.
overreached, but in this case, I think it was a really good um, opportunity that I had to be pushed a little bit to jump into.
How much do you feel like the belief from either the ops manager or whoever it was that sort of referred you forward to that? How much do you feel like that actually helped you in just going for it as opposed to maybe not doing it or not trying?
No, I think 100%. I mean, a large part of it was that I respected that
Yeah.
ops manager quite strongly. So if I didn't have that relationship or respect, and everyone did, he was very well known in the business and a bit of a sort of confidant for a lot of people, and particularly young engineers. Um, if it was sort of a random manager or someone that we didn't have a connection with, there might have been, okay, do I have the trust? Are they going to
Yeah.
back me because they know I'm learning? You can always put someone forward, but if you don't know that person who's putting you forward and you don't have the trust that they'll support you, um, then it's a bit more of a lonely place to be. But he was there. He was there supporting me. And then you could have open communication. You could say, look, I'll take this role on. There's some gaps. We know there's some gaps, but we can sync on the
Yeah.
side and we can talk about that. And so that was very important. I mean, in other situations, you may not take that and you say, look, I'm not quite ready for it yet. I appreciate it. But maybe it's overreaching.
Yeah. Of course.
But because you know the manager well
Yeah.
and they know you, it's a bit more of a
Yeah.
comfort space to do it. So I guess it's picking the right one.
Yeah. So it's more of an enabler for you to actually go and do it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's you can be offered something, and I've seen it a couple of times where um, it's maybe not being offered it for the right reasons. Maybe they need to just fill a
Yeah.
space, and you're the right person who sits there at the time, but maybe you don't fill it for the long term. Then it's not right for your own career as well. But luckily in that situation, we both had the same kind of approach, and we knew each other quite well, but he probably knew me better than I did because I didn't think I was ready for it.
Yeah, that's nice. It's nice that you have that trust as well, or someone has that trust in you and belief in you. I guess one thing I wanted to ask you around that is you mentioned sort of briefing pipe fitters or workers that have been in the industry 50 years. How did you find that? Did you ever have a time where people thought like, oh, I'm not listening to you, or you're too young?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I still get that in
Yeah,
some areas now, and I'll probably always feel that a
yeah,
little bit, and partially because I was never, on the tools. I think that's always a bit of a challenge as a, engineer or qualified engineer that maybe wasn't up from, say, as an electrician or a fitter, where you kind of didn't learn the ropes moving up that way. And I guess the way I try to break it down and still try to break it down is just having sort of honest conversations with people and being kind of open with them
yeah,
around where you think your own faults is maybe a strong one, but maybe gaps are
yeah,
as well. And say, look, I don't know everything, and I'm not trying to say I know everything. You've got some great skills and knowledge, and I've seen you, and even a little bit of shadowing and just kind of learning off them for a little bit, and trying to break that barrier down a little
yeah,
bit. Um, it's so much of it is around perception, and if you go in too strong and you try and force your way at the start, you're never going to get people to follow you. I mean, like kind of the basic leadership. So I just try and break those walls down and just be open with people and say, look, this is where I think we're going as a business or a business unit. This is sort of the mandate from the board or from the exec team. How do we break that down together? And what's your views on this? And really get buy-in, because so many times I've been steered the other way as well. I thought I've had kind of preset, yeah, I think we probably need to do this. And you have an open forum for an hour or two with people and try and break those barriers down. And you walk out going, wow, I've learned a lot
yeah.
through that and actually tweak the approach to something else. So I think it's just about how you approach it, being open to feedback, and you want to be confident, but you also don't want to on the first meeting as well. You want people to know that you're approachable, that you
Yeah.
don't know everything, that you're open to that. And look, some bend to it, and others it takes a long time. I used to go out on the field with some fitters back in Melbourne for weeks at a time, and a couple of them I couldn't get them to crack. They just thought I was a young engineer coming in pushing,
Yeah.
um, and sometimes you have to just accept that and go, right, okay, that's your space and this is my space, and as long as we can still kind of see eye to eye on the minimum stuff, I don't expect you to change your attitude and be the happiest guy in the world. But as long as we get kind of some midway, so we have a working relationship, that's the best you can do sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think what you mentioned there is like it's almost you know you can't come in as a leader and just start throwing your weight around straight away. You need to earn that sort of trust and respect from everyone, and naturally they'll learn it from you as well. So I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah, and I mean that might be some other people's approach. It's just not my.
Yeah,
That's not in my character. Um, I like to. I mean, for me, it's about understanding who's in the team, what their experience is, what can they add to it, and so I'm not leading from the front on my own,
yeah,
right? I mean, it's the whole business unit together trying to make it work. So if I went in and I said it's my way or the highway, it's not really my personality, and I haven't found that people follow me doing that.
yeah,
Um, and I would feel a little bit bad trying to do that anyway. So I think there's a little bit about your own sort of general personality on whether you're happy to kind of. But if you go that way, then you need to commit to that,
yeah,
and you need to be sure that you know what you're doing 100%. Whereas I try to be quite open and say, well, you've all been working here a lot longer than me. You've been working in the industry usually longer than me. I mean, um, how do we kind of combine that? And then I add a little bit of context from the upper levels of the business, from the market, and we try and shape those skills and that perspective into where we need to go.
yeah. So really work together to actually get things done, as opposed to just saying this is what he's doing or this is how we're going to do it. But I think it's
Yeah, I mean, it sounds sort of cliche,
yeah,
a little bit, but it is true. But you're trying to then distill the different perspectives, and sometimes you can go into rabbit holes. So, my view as kind of a leader is to try and take out of those 20 points that I've just been given in a 5 minute sort of run through what the issues are and trying to distill it down. Okay, so maybe these three out of the 20 are core.
yeah,
Let's park the others for now and sort of keep moving the business forward. So you're also a little bit of a filter as well,
yeah.
for the right sort of situation and discussion.
Nice, I like it. I guess going over your career and probably a lot of lessons you've learned along the way, but for the maybe young engineers or graduates that are listening, what lessons have you learned? What advice would you like to give to them?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I would say I think core is about how you communicate, what we've just been talking about. Being open to different avenues of learning and developing your skills. But communications is so important. Well, from what I've found anyway through my
Yeah,
career is um, you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't communicate it well, what you're trying to say, or if you can't build a relationship with another engineer or a manager or a service provider, um, perceptions has a big
yeah,
impact, and how you communicate influences people's perceptions of you, and that dictates whether they're going to open you up for the next promotion or consider you for a special project. I think it's so important of just how you approach people, and really making sure it's not a kind of level thing. You don't approach sort of executives a certain way and then people that are under you a different way. Just generally being approachable and being a good communicator. I think it's so important. You can learn a lot of the technical, but if you can't communicate that, it's sort of stuck in your
yeah,
head. So I would think like working on comms, is a really important part, and trying to pick out a couple of. I think mentors again is a bit of a cliche, right? You don't have to have a full
yeah,
mentor program, but try and pick out a couple of people that can give you advice that normally maybe you'd be a bit nervous to talk to. That you say, oh, they're a few levels up, or maybe they're too senior, or in a different company, or Um, but having a little bit of courage to try and have a chat with them. And again, don't make it formal. You don't have to say, "Can you be my mentor?" or anything. But more, can I grab a coffee? Can we have a chat? I want to pick your brain about something. And then you build up a bit of some of the best discussions I've had and perspective I've had has been because I've just coincidentally been able to sit down with a couple of levels up or someone in a different business that's a bit more senior, and they look at your situation in different light.
Yeah.
And they say, well, why haven't you applied for that over there, or why haven't you have you thought about studying in this area or learning about liquid cooling or AI or the next? And it gives you that perspective. I think we can get the blinkers on too much
Yeah.
sometimes, and then you get stuck in a rut of, okay, I'm fixed to this. So I would say like those two are the main ones. So I would focus on, and they've really helped me. Again, I'm not the most technical engineer out there in terms of mechanical engineering, but it's being able to try and communicate what you've learned, what other people have fed you, and then represent that a lot of the time. You're kind of feeding that to someone else or putting that in a business case, or so the comms, and then trying to learn off people outside of your current sphere.
Yeah.
I would say it's the two main
For
ones.
the people that may be listening that are maybe worried to go and speak to someone more senior, would you say that as being someone senior, being in sort of the position you are, it's important that a lot of people actually are happy to pass on their knowledge or happy to sort of share wisdom with younger people, with maybe the next generation coming through. But I think from a younger person's perspective, maybe they're being quite scared to ask. So you feel like it's important to just actually just go for it, because more than often not, they're actually going to the more senior people actually share their wisdom and share their knowledge with you.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I try and take the mentor label off it. You don't have to call it
Yeah.
mentoring. Just having a chat, having a coffee, having a discussion, and the worst case is that they say no, they don't have time. But what I've found, and I've had this a few times, even a few weeks back, someone asked me about heat export for data centers and how does it work. So we're growing as a sector, so we have a lot more people coming into the business that haven't got the data
Yeah.
center experience. And we just jumped into a room, and I grabbed a whiteboard pen and started kind of explaining. And I enjoy that. I
Yeah.
really enjoy it, but I don't set down the time to do that too often. So I think, those people that you're afraid or nervous to talk to, or that you may think are out of bounds, they'll be glad to give you the knowledge, but they don't often get
Yeah.
asked.
Of
You
course.
know, so I think there's a little bit of back and forth, and there's probably some onus on my side and the senior leader side as well, that we need to kind of reach out a little bit more, to be honest, to try and impart some of that knowledge.
Yeah.
But I've found it really valuable. I've spoken a couple of times at School of Economics in Stockholm about data centers, and it is good to reflect when you're doing that. You reflect on, okay, well, I've learned this and I've led this team, and this is where the industry is going. And I think to all those people out there that need that support or want to learn more, I think there's plenty of people to do it, but we need to be pushed sometimes, even
Yeah.
myself. Like, I'm interested in this. Can you have a chat, Ben? And most of the time they'll say no. And if they say, I say yes. But if they say no, then it's probably someone that you don't want to
Yeah.
maybe get the
Talk
feedback
to.
from
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Of
You
course.
know, so
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of people are happy to share sort of their wisdom and knowledge. It's a case that you can't do it if you don't know. If no one's asked you, you can't do it. So for the younger people listening, I think it's definitely worth just go and ask. Like, the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no, or not right now, I'm a bit busy, but come back to me later maybe. So yeah, that's important.
100%. And one little trick I found with one of the leaders at AWS who was quite good at it. He said, "Do you want to just go for a walk?"
Okay.
And we just went for a walk,
Yeah.
and we were chatting probably half an hour. But it wasn't formal. It wasn't sitting
Yeah.
down. It wasn't, let's grab dinner or anything. It's just a walk around the site.
Yeah.
We just happened to be at the data center for the day. And I thought it was a brilliant move to it disarms people.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how senior you are or junior you are. You're just having a walk around either the site, or even if you're in an office in, central London somewhere.
Yeah.
quick walk around the block. Just it's an easy way to kind of break the ice a bit as well.
Yeah, I
So
think it doesn't feel too formal as well. Like if you're just sat in a small room, just opposite each other, looking at each other, it can be probably a bit nerve wracking for a younger person. But if you are sort of just walking side by side, it's very, I guess, nice and chilled and relaxed, isn't it?
yeah, definitely. Something that stuck out with me, and like I said, trying to learn every day
Yeah,
still. And I learned off that one. I thought it was a great approach. So.
nice. I like that one. I guess looking ahead, then, how do you think the industry is going to evolve in sort of the near future?
Well, I think you're seeing it every week. I mean, it's the demands on data centers building out faster, larger, uh, higher compute. So, liquid
Yeah,
cooling demands and just generally design iterations continue to ramp up because the customer need changes so quickly. So I think scale will continue to grow. It'll be interesting to see where that kind of balances
yeah,
out. It's not unlimited,
yeah. Of course.
land and power. But I think there will be a sort of continued pressure on trying to get to that equilibrium where we start to adopt more AI services in our day-to-day life, kind of like digitalization sort of 15, 20 years ago,
Yeah,
right? I mean, how do you use the internet? How do you use a web page? How does it work with a business? It wasn't quite clear back then, but we knew it had potential. Whereas now it's sort of a given day to day and it's sort of fully integrated. And I think AI will be the same. So for DCs, I think it's continued development. I think the relationship between the customer and the data center operators getting even closer.
yeah,
Even in colo, you used to go, okay, that's customer racks, we do the cooling, the power, the security, um, air cooled, but they manage their own
yeah,
racks. And maybe we help a little bit with sort of hotspots and stuff. Now you've got direct to chip, sort of the systems are kind of integrated now between the data center operator and the customer. So there's very blurred lines between the ownership, the responsibility. So you've got to work even closer together. So I kind of see that happening from an ops perspective, us getting even closer to the customer, um, and really working together to make sure the services
yeah,
stay live and we provide the best products. Um, but it's just continual development, and that's the exciting part. It's very hard to kind of predict. I mean, I know there's Jensen Huang the other day for the video out there on about DCs in
yeah,
space. That could be the next one as well, which will provide an interesting challenge for engineers to try and maintain them.
yeah.
Uh, but it's so exciting. It's just us keeping up with the pace and trying to predict what the next step will be. So we have built the sites to kind of be, future ready for the next stage in chips and sort of AI technology.
Yeah, my colleague actually, who runs a space sector here at TECHNE, done the podcast with the founder and CEO of the company that does data centers in space. So it's quite interesting to hear it from their side. But I mean, how would you manage a data center in space? That would be pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's I mean, we talked about it a few years ago when Microsoft sort of did a trial subsea
Yeah,
DC, I think in the north of Scotland, and you know, people looked at that kind of, okay, there's the advantages of cooling underwater, but how do you maintain it? But, the same thing was said to Musk about, getting into the rocket game and how
yeah,
are you going to improve on that? And then a complete flip on innovation of return use of the rocket. So, I think where there's a challenge, people are there to kind of meet it
yeah,
and to innovate. And there's a hell of a lot of innovation happening in this sector. So I don't doubt someone will kind of come up with a way to do it. And that's what's exciting about it. At the same time, then you need to plan to manage and maintain assets for 20, 25-year lifespan. So as things rapidly change, you have to kind of adapt your operating model,
yeah.
review your risk management, new chips in there, very expensive racks from the customer side, and making sure your models adapt and continually adapt, probably faster than we had to before.
Yeah, I think as the new innovation comes in, it brings sort of new challenges on the upside as well, doesn't it? So you've got to then upskill or keep up with it essentially.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, but that's the exciting
Yeah,
part, and probably the similar space, or situation happened in the car space where you had the big front runners, but then you had Tesla come in from the side and really drive a lot of different kinds of innovation that forced some of those other big players to kind of look at that. And competition drives
Yeah,
that. And in the DC space, we're all kind of competing, but we're all working together
yeah.
in a way as well. But it's an exciting space to be in, and what's around the corner. At minimum, I would say scale and growth and faster kind of build outs. But in terms of chips and space, and who knows where it'll go from there.
Yeah, I guess due to sort of the evolution you think we're going to see in the near future, are there any key skill sets that are maybe critical for the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, definitely right
Yeah,
now, more cooling, mechanical engineers, mechanical technicians, because DCs are looking more like refineries now than kind of data halls. The amount of pipe work that we've got in some of the high-end AI deployments, direct to chip liquid cooling, all the CDUs, the
yeah,
kind of cooling units you need across those spaces. So right now, it tends to be the kind of mechanical side and knowledge around cooling systems, chiller systems, all that kind of stuff. So I think that will be a big one. I mean, obviously on like the chip side and the software side, but more from an ops
yeah,
perspective, I would say the mech. I mean, elec is always going to be quite strong because we need to power these sites and we need to have reliable systems to kind of maintain consistent power. So I would say mech was a little bit, primary was elec before,
yeah,
and then mech's really kind of shot up as a kind of really critical part because losing power is one thing now, and then losing cooling is as catastrophic as losing power. Whereas before with air cooling, you had a little bit of
yeah,
leeway. So yeah, probably mech is moving forward quite quickly, and then obviously elec as standard. Probably the third one is controls, control systems, where we're getting proactive monitoring. We're getting a lot more sensors on our equipment, a lot more intel and visibility. But you have to maintain all those control
yeah,
systems and those sensors, all the metering, and that's your kind of eye in the sky to get really good visibility. So as these deployments get higher and higher compute, the tolerance level is just reducing. So where you had minutes before, you've got seconds now to respond. So the control systems are so critical to us.
yeah,
So yeah, I would bet a little bit on mech and controls as a good pathway. It's very difficult to find
yeah.
controls engineers and experienced controls engineers. So
Nice, I like that. I guess your podcast episode, of course. So, is there anything that maybe you're passionate about, whether it be inside or outside of work, that you'd like to speak to the listeners about?
yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been in ops management and asset management for most of my career, so that's tends to be a lot of my life.
Yeah,
And just healthy sort of team building. Like I want my team and my business unit to be happy when they go to work, enjoy work. We're in the same kind of vision. We don't all have to kind of spout out the company values and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff, but we're in it sort of together, and it's about a team environment. And again, I know it's sort of cliche, but that's how I tend to approach things. And I like my team to try and approach it is just, we're all trying to support each other.
yeah,
We win together or we lose together. And that's the attitude that I kind of look for when I'm kind of recruiting or hiring as well. Skill is one part of it. What have you done, and what kind of technical
yeah,
capabilities have you got? But really, do you want to be part of us, or do you want to kind of sit out on your own? And that's what I tend to
yeah,
focus on, and it's quite passionate about trying to bring the team a little bit closer together and make sure we're kind of going in the right direction, and that I support and can support where possible to kind of keep people happy, because I know it's high pressure. It's
yeah,
this mission critical environments. We're supporting some of the kind of foundational systems in our society now, in our data centers, and it can be quite stressful. So trying to keep a good environment, trying to keep people focused on what's important, and filter a little bit for
yeah.
them from the rest of the environment. So
I think because it is so sort of, I guess, high impact, high stress, high pressure, it's even more important that someone can then come in and actually fit into the team and is actually bought into the team, as opposed to coming in and wanting to do anything, because it only then sort of costs the team and lets the team down essentially, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we overcomplicate it as well. Like we spend so much of our lives at
Yeah,
work that we still want, we want people to enjoy what they're
yeah, of
doing.
course.
You can't enjoy every day
Yeah,
and every minute.
yeah,
Uh, but if you know that the person next to you's got your back, and then they'll support you if there's a report due or something happens, you've got an incident, and they'll jump in and help you, or they'll answer the call, when it's late at night and you need help. I think that's what it's about, right? Because then
yeah,
you're a bit more comfortable in your space. Your team are comfortable. We know where we're going. There's always things to fix.
yeah,
That never ends, particularly in operations. But if you've got a strong backing with your team and you've got sort of someone to your left and to your right, then I think things are moving, pretty well in the right direction. So that's what I'm kind of passionate about. It's not, everyone singing "Kumbaya" and clapping their hands
yeah,
every day, but trying to get particularly like the business units I run, kept trying to get them into a space where people we're on the same direction. Difference of opinions really important as well.
yeah,
Like, so it's not about groupthink, um, but it's more like we can disagree, but then we can still have a coffee
yeah, of
and we
course.
can still have lunch together.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no toys out of the pram.
yeah, yeah.
I guess final sort of section, then we'll really go a bit deeper into the company. So Bulk. The first thing I want to ask then, what would you say is the sort of mission and vision? What impact is Bulk trying to have?
Yeah, I mean, most of your listeners probably wouldn't have heard of us. I mean, outside of the Nordics, but what we're trying to provide is um, the supply of land and power in a kind of renewable space that's sustainable. Power supplied, particularly in Norway,
Yeah,
is very high hydro. 98, 99% renewable supply of power. We're trying to be that. Uh, Option for customers to really deploy at big scale fast,
yeah,
in a renewable environment like the Nordics. Obviously we have free cooling, we've got renewable power supply, and there's a number of other areas that we work on to try and drive sustainability. But we've got, a good bank of land and power,
yeah,
when in this sector that's quite scarce.
yeah,
Yeah. And so that's what we're really trying to do. That's our core focus, is to provide that option for our customers and make sure that, as customers move into big AI deployments, we're one of the providers that can really give them that option at quite rapid
yeah,
pace. And there's not too many at that front end. We've got quite a number of AI kind of high density deployments. We've got a fair bit of land bought and purchased, and power already sitting there.
yeah,
So we're trying to be that sort of Nordic
yeah,
provider for them at big scale. We're not a pure colo where we run sort of small co-location DCs across different locations. We obviously have a couple of sites, but we're there to support for kind of your big AI deployment needs, at a kind of efficient sort of level.
yeah. Almost already sort of, I guess, prepared with the land, ready to go. So it's quite unique.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what we hear is sort of the big blockers,
Yeah,
right? Okay, you've got land, but do you have power? Or have you got power, but you don't
yeah,
have land, or you don't have the permits? We've been really fortunate in terms of the founders a number of years back, cornered off right next to one of the biggest substations in Norway. Quite a big parcel of land built out. I know we've got sort of 70 megs already deployed under kind of high density deployments, anything from rear door coolers to in-rack CDUs. And then we have a mix of colo in Oslo and down in Denmark. So the other unique thing that I saw when I moved to Bulk was we own our own subsea fiber, and we connect our sites to our own fiber. So we're sort of fully owner integrated,
yeah,
connecting between subsea. We got subsea all the way across to the US and Canada and the UK. So we are sort of a true infrastructure
yeah.
provider, not sort of just islands of DCs on their own.
Almost all in one.
Yeah, and I found it quite unique, and that was part of me, moving to the team. That the growth profile that we've got is quite exciting, because the demands there. It's to try and get power, land, renewable power backed as
Yeah,
well, um, but also have the skills to deploy quickly. So you're trying to go big, high end, right at the forefront of the technology space, but do it
Yeah.
fast. And I think we're in quite a good niche to do that. And it's quite exciting to be a part of it.
That's really interesting, quite unique as well. I guess going a bit into the culture, what is the culture like? Why is it an exciting place to work from sort of your experience so far?
Yeah, I think we touched on it earlier in terms of the sort of the big corporate versus the small business, and
Yeah,
we like to kind of think of ourselves as still as a startup. We've been around 10
nice.
years, but you know, that kind of mentality more from a culture perspective where things are changeable, things are agile. We don't have silos. We kind of communicate across teams, and we iterate quite quickly
Yeah,
because our customer base is changing quite quickly. Um, so that's what I find really exciting, and that you know there's a willingness across the whole business to keep on this path of growth, to support our customers. So I think it's a really good environment. People are friendly. Obviously, in the Nordics, people are generally
yeah,
friendly as a stereotype, right? Um, but everyone's on board. I mean, there's a strong connection to the original founder and the vision that he's got. And so we've got a mix of people that have been around from the start, which still have that
yeah,
vision, and then a mix of a lot of new people which are brought into that. So it's quite a cool environment where you're sort of mixing, okay, this is what we've done, and then you've got a few people like myself with different experience that jump on board, and then we're sort of adapting things as we go and really building out. So it's quite a cool space to build a team and build the next level for our customer
yeah.
base.
I guess for someone that is maybe listening that wants to potentially work for Bulk in the future or is considering a career there, what sort of behaviours and mindsets do you look for, or do the business as a whole look for someone that's joining?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, we're not a global corporate.
Yeah,
We are very much a kind of roll the sleeves up, get
get your
in
hands
and get your
dirty.
hands
Yeah,
dirty. Yeah, yeah. Again, I'm going to throwing out a lot of cliches on it, but it's true in this sort of smaller company startup mentality. You know, we've got over 100 megs in deployment and some of the biggest sort of AI deployments in Northern Europe. But we are kind of one team getting in, supporting each other, and that's really kind of the core, right?
yeah,
So you know, if you come in expecting everything to be laid out, the structure, um, tell you where you need to do A, B, C, D, E. That's not really the space that we're in. We're very much, you know, I'm in there with the
yeah,
team, working on things, and we're all kind of pretty flat in terms of the structure. Um, and pretty sort of split across the responsibilities. So really open to do that, open to learn in different avenues. You know, you could be presenting to the board one day, or you could be presenting to the exec team, or presenting to some of our kind of top end customers. Um, and really kind of pushing your skill set,
yeah,
which is a really cool space to be in. Like I said before, with the smaller company, you get exposed to so many different avenues that you wouldn't have before, but you need to be comfortable in the uncomfortable,
yeah. Of
if that
course.
makes
I think one of the things, working at any startup is the fact that you have to wear many hats or do many different things. You're not just got one role, one job title, which is sometimes a lot of the time is the beauty of a startup. You get so much exposure to so many different things that you actually learn so much more than you would if you was in a big corporation.
Yeah, 100%. And you need to be willing to put your hand up and say, look, I'm not sure about
Yeah,
this, and I need to get some more advice. It doesn't mean you have to make decisions on everything without the right information. And it doesn't mean we don't follow process and governance. Um, but it means you might have to go and check that with someone. You might have to go and look through the documentation
yeah,
and review the procedure, or rewrite the procedure. Whereas maybe in a global business, and some of the ones I've worked at before, you have a whole team doing that in the US,
of
or you have a
course.
whole team in the UK doing that. And so that makes you kind of obviously learn, but take a little bit more personal accountability as well. So it's not an area to kind of, oh, we can just make decisions and move forward.
Yeah,
You then need to go through that rigor and be that kind of, because there's no one else.
yeah,
It falls with you, and you need to kind of be the stopgap to kind of protect our customers and protect our board and our owners. So it's not all without personal
yeah,
responsibility,
of
but
course.
that makes you really sort of dive into things and learn at a rapid pace, I would say.
Yeah, which is a good thing. I guess for the people that are potentially going to come and work there and work for you in the future, what are you like as a leader? How do you how do you go about that yourself?
Yeah, I think I touched on a little bit earlier where again I like to sort of work with the
Yeah,
team and obviously I've got sort of mandates that we need to hit certain targets and goals and deliverables, but bring everyone as a part of that into that discussion. So I'm very much going to get the team together. Let's work on the solution. Let's work out the pathway ahead. I'm happy to make the call and make the decision and
yeah,
drive
of
things
course.
forward and keep us in line and keep us moving. Um, but I'm not sort of the kind of person that will just sort of shout from the pulpit and direct things without any kind of feedback. So I like to be pretty open minded. I like to get the feedback. Again, I'm not super engineering minded in the sense of getting into all the detail. I
Yeah,
like to be given kind of high level summaries and then work through it and then pick out what's the important information that I need to know. um, and I just like to support the team where I can. I think that's the main thing. You always take it personally if people leave your team
yeah,
for obviously different reasons, but just trying to create an environment where people are enjoying what they're doing and we're still on the right pathway to kind of hit the goals that we need to as a business, with a lot of empathy,
yeah,
right? I
of
mean,
course.
everyone's got their own different personal circumstances, and it's trying to find the blend between that and the business goals and just trying to thread the needle.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think it's quite empowering. Not very. I think people get a good sense through the recording and the episode itself of what you like and what you was like maybe as a young leader, what you're like now. So it's nice to hear. The final thing I want to touch on then is why should people choose a career with your business? Are there any sort of key skill sets that you're really looking to attract now? We can really use the podcast to actually elevate and spotlight that skill set. Maybe it might be something that's critical for bulk or something that's quite challenging for them. I guess is there anything in particular that comes to mind either now or in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like for high level context, if you want to join a business that is, clearly we're in operation of some really high end deployments, but we're just at the start.
Yeah,
And it's almost like joining AWS about 15 years ago, where things were being built out from Ireland across to mainland Europe. Being a part of that being built out is really
yeah,
quite exciting. And we're hiring from engineers, like I touched on. From principal engineers down to kind of junior engineers, graduate engineers, different interns. But we're on a massive growth kind of
yeah,
scale, and it's you know the question I guess is for your listeners to ask where they want to go in their own career, where they're at.
yeah,
Everyone's at a different stage. Um, but if you've got experience in the industry and you want to impart that and then help drive that into the next level of where we're going, that's definitely where we align. And if you're new to the industry and you want to be a part of where the business is going, so we're kind of looking at a few different levels of where we need to be. Obviously, as a smaller business, we need some experience coming in
yeah,
to kind of
of
help us,
course.
pivot.
Yeah,
But there's plenty of opportunity at all levels. I think that's the exciting part of the kind of growth, and the pace that we're moving at. Like I said before, it's just being open minded, willing to kind of roll up your sleeves, and willing to kind of get the support when you need it. But anything across, I mean, from my side, the ops side, technicians, engineers, 24/7 techs on site, BMS control,
yeah,
that kind of stuff. And then you've got the whole project side and the business development side. So we'll be looking heavily at, project managers, project admin, project engineers, the whole kind of suite to deliver fast for our customers as well. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like a really exciting time to to actually join Bulk and go on that journey. So it's going to be quite a heck of a journey to come forward, which is really exciting.
yeah, definitely. No, I'm very excited. There's never a dull day, as you know, in the sector. But it's fantastic to be a part of the team, and like a few other companies out there, it's moving fast and it's exciting, and you've just got to kind of enjoy that speed as well.
Yeah,
Because it's not always like that in different sectors, and it can be challenging, but that's how you develop
yeah, of
and
course.
push through the barrier as well, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
nice. Well, I really appreciate you obviously taking the time to jump on the podcast with me, Ben, and share your story. I think you've got some really sort of powerful messages and quite a unique experience. So people from all backgrounds can maybe consider sort of a career in data centers because you didn't necessarily start there. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me. It's been fantastic having a great discussion and giving a little bit of insight of where I've been and where Bulk's at as well. And it's just great to get more information out about the sector as
Yeah,
well.
brilliant, perfect. Thank you, Ben. Cheers.
Thank you.